All right, so today we're going to start off Chapter 2, Lesson 2, The Colonies on Their Own. And we're going to discuss this period, say 1700 all the way up until 1776. And this is a crucial period in the Americas. Understand that at this point, the 13 colonies had been established. And each one of them had their own government, their own system of government, but they were all very similar. And really what happened, what mostly was the case, was the English government allowed them a lot of freedom to govern themselves, okay? And after, generations of this, not my mom and my dad or my grandparents, my great-grandparents, for generations, the colonies had self-rule. Each colony was a little different, but they had the ability to govern themselves. And in 1756, the British go to war with the French. Okay, British end up winning this war. It's called, the Americans will call it the French Indian War, because the American colonists and the British fought together against the French and the Native Americans. In this case, the Native Americans had to make a choice. They said, who are we going to support? The French or the English? And they made the choice that the French were better, so they're going to support them. Remember, and I'm going to show you in a second here, the French controlled the land around the Mississippi River. And the English were looking to move in and take some of that land. Well, this war, like all wars, costs a lot of money. And after the war's over, the British go to the Americans and the colonists and say, hey, listen, we just fought a war for you. It was very expensive, right? We know how expensive wars are. The last two wars we fought, I think, have $4 to $5 trillion price tag now. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And did we win those wars? I don't know, but they cost a lot. And then, of course, that cost got put onto our national debt, which means that me and mostly even you, because I don't have that much longer to work, where you guys are just starting. You're going to be paying this back for a long time, your whole life probably. Wars are expensive. So the British say, hey, listen, colonists, we're going to raise taxes to help pay for the war that we just fought for you. And the colonists said no. Well, they didn't really say no. And I want to go back. Look, what they said was, sure, we'll pay a little more in taxes, but what we want is a seat at the table. We want to be represented in your parliament. So give us some more tax money. In turn, we would like a seat at the table in your parliament. We want to be part of the decision-making process. And this concept becomes no taxation without representation. Okay, they wanted a voice at the table. And the English said no. So then the colonists said no, right? And there's a series of events that take place between the colonists and the British. We have things like the Boston Massacre, where the British start shooting at a bunch of peaceful protesters. By the way, that's a terrible idea if you're ever a leader. Don't shoot at peaceful protesters. It doesn't work out well. We have the Boston Tea Party, where a bunch of harbor workers refuse to unload tea, and then they dress up as Native Americans and dump the tea into the ocean. The British then get strict with the colonies, especially in Massachusetts, where this had taken place. Both of these events took place in Massachusetts, in Boston. And they move the army into the city. And they say citizens have to house and feed the army. Actually, they have to give up their beds and give them whatever they want to eat. It's not like, yeah, you can stay in the back room. No, it's like, oh, I have to stay in my own back room now. The soldiers get my front room. They get the good stuff. Then the British try to police the city. The people of Massachusetts, they don't like that, right? They don't want to have to deal. So we're talking about these events, the way the British were treating the people of Massachusetts. He says these are considered the intolerable acts, right, by the colonists. They say, I will not tolerate this any longer um, from you. All right, so let's, and I think I got this somewhere. Let's take a look at a map of the 7 Years' War. We're gonna try and see, because when the British won, so right, the colonists, they why the war, right? What was the point of this war? Um, and interestingly, it did in part have to do with fighting in Europe. I actually believe Winston Churchill said that the 7 Years' War was the First World War, because they were fighting in India, they were fighting in Europe, but for our class, what really matters is the fighting in the Americas. And the British used to rule all this land in blue, okay? And they turn around and they lose it to the English after the 7 Years' War. Well, they don't lose Canada, but they lose this land right here, the land east of the Mississippi, but west of the Appalachian Mountains. And a lot of this is what we call the Ohio Valley, right? And the colonists were then allowed to have this land. So the British thought, like, hey, totally cool, we're going to raise taxes. And the colonists, like I said, would have been cool with it if they got a seat at the table. But they didn't, and then there was escalation, there was back and forth. Bottom line, this will be the cause of the Revolutionary War. Okay? And that's